The most beautiful freeway in Hawaii also happens to be the most contentious. It might also be claimed that it is the most beautiful and possibly the most contentious interstate in the entire United States. The H3 highway connects Pearl Harbor on Oahu's southern shore to the Marine Corps Base Hawaii on Mokepu Peninsula on the island's eastern coast. The arched viaducts and tunnels slicing through the mountains define the H3 highway against breathtaking natural settings. It's so pretty, it may even be one of the reasons why some people choose to visit Hawaii. One look at this road explains why there were so many environmental, as well as native Hawaiian concerns about the project. It is also clear that the environmental concerns contribute to it being one of the most visually attractive roads in the country. But what is the underlying reason behind the uproar? The highway. The H3 Interstate Highway runs wholly across the U.S. state of Hawaii on the island of Oahu. H3 is also known as the John A. Burns Freeway, after Hawaii's second governor. It spans the Kūlau Range via multiple viaducts including the Tetsuo Harano tunnels, which are 1,574 m long, as well as the considerably smaller Hospital Rock tunnels. Regardless of the number, the signage is for an east-west roadway. Its western end is at an intersection with H1 near Pearl Harbor. It ends at the main gate of Marine Corps Base Hawaii. This route serves the national defense objective of connecting MCBH to the U.S. Navy port on H1 at Pearl Harbor. The motorway was ordered back in 1960, followed by planning stages. Construction began in the late 1980s despite massive community opposition, but the road did not open until December 12, 1997. Construction was suspended several times due to environmental complaints and legal challenges, but resumed in the late 1980s, thanks to the efforts of U.S. Senator Daniel Inouye, who had the motorway exempted from most environmental restrictions as a rider on a Department of Defense budget bill in 1986. On a per-mile basis, H3 was one of the most expensive interstate highways ever built. It ultimately cost $1.3 billion, equal to $2.07 billion in 2021, or about $80 million per mile. The route the Halawa interchange with H1 and auxiliary route H201 is located northwest of downtown Honolulu. The interchange is located next to Aloha Stadium and to the northeast of Joint Base Pearl Harbor-Hickam, which houses the Pearl Harbor National Memorial. H3 connects directly to H1, which continues south to Daniel K. Inouye International Airport and west to Pearl City, as well as an on-ramp from the Aloha Stadium parking lot. The freeway runs east along Hlawa Stream, parallel to H201, and intersects it near Salt Lake. H3 then turns northeast and follows Hlawa Valley toward the Kūlau Range. The freeway then travels for nearly 9.7 kilometers on windward viaducts across Hlawa Valley until it reaches the Tetsuo Harano tunnels through the Kūlau Range. It then follows a viaduct built along the edge of Hake Valley until it reaches the Kaneohe interchange with Route 63, which connects to the town of Kaneohe. The motorway continues past the Kaneohe interchange to the Halaku interchange with Route 83, and then to the Kauila interchange with Route 65, and the Mokepu interchange serving Kaneohe Bay Drive. Following the Mokepu interchange, H3 crosses a causeway between Kiohe Bay and Nupia Pond before terminating at the main gate of MCBH, connecting vast parts of Hawaii. But why did people hate it? History. The U.S. Congress approved money for a network of interstate highways on Oahu in 1960, a year after Hawaii was established as a state. The proposal featured a corridor connecting the Honolulu area to Kiohe, which was designated as Interstate H3 by the Bureau of Public Roads on August 29, 1960.01. The H3 motorway has been fraught with controversy since its inception. The initial plan was to take the nearest major valley straight east in the Moanalua Ahupua'a, rather than the actual Hlawa Valley. In 1970, the Damon family rushed to establish the Moanalua Gardens Foundation to unite all political and cultural groups opposed to the freeway's development across their property. The foundation's main no-build argument was the necessity to remove Pohaku Kaluahin, a valuable historical stone with ancient petroglyphs that still stands intact along the Moanalua Valley Trail. This freeway route was dropped, bringing them success, but H3 would just be redirected. According to their perspective, Kanaka Maoli, native Hawaiian cultural practitioners, continue to urge for the highway's removal since it goes through an area of extreme cultural significance. The Bishop Museum, which conducted the historical and archaeological investigation, has released detailed papers that generally attribute lower cultural significance to these sites in comparison to other Hawaiian sites. Many people believe that the motorway is cursed because of the demolition of sacred sites, and that it is thus dangerous even to those who use it. Weed invasion, light pollution, asbestos contamination, water and stream life difficulties, and a slew of other issues are continuous environmental concerns, including the ongoing reduction of native owls known as pueo and other native species. For example, no sightings of the Oahu alawahio, whose last known home was Halawa, have been reported since H3 construction was completed. Some lifelong Kulaupoko and other East Shore residents continue to oppose the freeway's development consequences on their towns. One of their main concerns is urbanization on the size of Honolulu via the freeway, which has the potential to bring significant traffic and growth into their normally calm areas, as well as influence the value of their properties in the relatively rural villages. This road, on the other hand, is regarded as an engineering marvel by its supporters. It is frequently compared to many cinematic settings in Star Wars and other films, and it does occasionally cut travel time for cross-island commuters, allowing for increasing real estate development and prices on windward Oahu. One narrative concerns the elevated part that runs through Hake Valley. The viaduct ran beneath the antenna of a U.S. Coast Guard radio transmission facility in this valley. The antenna's energy field was suspected to interfere with heart pacemakers, posing a risk to drivers and passengers on the road. A massive metal cage was built to encircle the valley's roads. The U.S. Coast Guard closed their transmitting facility before H3 was opened, eliminating the need for the cage. Although the entire cage was never erected, the bottom of the cage was discovered lying beneath the street. HDOT chose not to build the steel mesh prior to the freeway's opening. But if so many people were against the freeway, how did it finally come to life? The most expensive Hawaiian public project engineers worked tirelessly to discover various solutions to reduce the environmental impact and overcome objections to the project. The concrete viaducts on the H3 route sides were constructed with lengthy spans to reduce the number of piers required to support the route. Along the journey, experts in native Hawaiian culture and archaeology were consulted. It took 37 years to complete the project, which cost $1.3 billion, $1 billion over budget. In fact, when it was finished in 1997, it was Hawaii's largest and most expensive public works project. Some have called the H3 interstate a road to nowhere, while others argue that it is a road to two somewheres. Unlike similar road-building schemes in New York City at the time, this interstate project was successfully challenged in court. President Nixon passed the National Environmental Policy Act into law in 1970, requiring the federal government to prepare lengthy environmental impact studies for the expressway, thus halting construction. For years, native Hawaiian and environmental groups exploited the remarks to stall highway building by citing environmental problems. While campaigners triumphed in court, wealthy landowners resisted its development the old-fashioned way. The Damon family, who had acquired most of the land in Moanalua Valley, through which the H3 was intended to be routed, vigorously pushed the Nixon administration. As a result, the H3 detoured through neighboring Hlawa Valley. Activists, academics, conservationists, landowners, and Oahu inhabitants resisted the H3's construction for decades. Few inhabitants believed it was a good idea because there were already ways from the east side of the island to central Honolulu in the south. It would also destroy portions of Oahu's remaining forests, where rare native birds sang. The freeway remains a gloomy memorial through sun-soaked mountain lines and wealthy valleys, with the occasional driver zipping through. People drive on it and think it's lovely, but what's underneath? This is what I've been learning. This is history being erased. When people see a structure, they assume it has always been there, with no idea of what came before. If you had fun watching this video, click the video on the screen to watch one of our finest productions about Nay Pyi Da, Myanmar's ghost capital.